Okay. Call the meeting to order tonight for the North Reading School Committee, October 25th, 2010. As always, our first order of business is public input. Is there anybody wishing to be heard on any items tonight before we get into our agenda? Okay, seeing none. Next, we have our student report. We have John Murray, and we also have a guest with John tonight. So John might want to introduce who that is. John?
This is Kristen Shevlin. She is the new student rep to the school committee for the class of 2013.
Great.
And she's observant.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Evening, everyone. Few things. The volleyball had a fundraiser tonight for the breast cancer awareness. All of the proceeds went to that cause, and they won. I was told they won the game against Peabody. The Maskers had a costume sale last weekend where they took all of their old costumes and sold them as Halloween wear. And their show, The Kitchen, is November 5th and 6th at 8 o'clock, and it's $10 to get in. The girls' soccer team had their senior night tonight, which was very nice. I went to that. The Hive program at the high school, we're having our first meeting tomorrow. So that's in between our second and third blocks, and students go with an assigned teacher, and the teacher has an agenda. I'm not positive on what the topic is tomorrow, but it's about half an hour long. The Model UN had its first debate last Thursday. We had it at the high school library. We had about a dozen kids come to this one. It was about Israel and Palestine, and we had an hour and a half long debate on what should be done. Resolutions were passed, that kind of thing. It was very nice, and there was a lot of freshmen there, which was a good sign for the club. The AP Gov class went to the JFK library. We saw, I'm in that class, we saw a mock gubernatorial debate, and it was Warren Tolman and Kerry Healy were the speakers for both the Democrat and the Republican, and they had the students. It was an open or a forum, so students could ask questions, things like that. There was no Jill Stein, and actually the Tim Cahill representative was Mr. Capizzuto back there. He stood up in front of, I think it was 6 schools, and made a speech from Tim Cahill, which was very impressive. No other student there did it. There's a Dodgeball Night this Thursday at 6:30, hosted by the junior class. It's a junior class fundraiser. The homecoming is November 19th. Fall sports awards are November 16th at 6:30, and the parent-teacher conferences are on November 22nd from 6:30 to 8:30. And my student work, I kind of have 2. It's AP Gov. Just disregard the top part of the front half. It's just my assignment. Didn't want to split it up. The presentation questions, where it says below, the teacher, Mr. Mack, is doing a program. It's a national program. It's called Democracy Now! And it's basically students sit in a panel and they have to research a certain question or subject in American politics. And then a panel of judges asks them questions. They have to make a brief statement, and then there's a Q&A session. So we've been doing this just within our class. We've had 2 so far. We've had the first one, it was just our teacher. This one we had the past week. It was students from, teachers from around the school, and they got to come in, listen to our 4-minute presentations, and then they have 5 minutes to ask us questions, and these are the questions for next time. And then on the back is our second project. It has to do with the congressional races. We were paired up, and we got to pick a race, and it has to be a media-based presentation. So basically, it has to be a PowerPoint, voice recording, something like that, video, and we have to give a brief presentation on the race now. Our presentations are next week, and then after the election, we have to give a follow-up presentation. So both of them, this second one is more current events, that kind of thing. The first one is the basis of, we talked about Federalist Papers and the Constitution and the legislative branch. So we kind of get a mix of both current and why government the way it is, And that's about it.
Great. Any questions, John? Just a couple of things. I believe the volleyball team is now 17-0, and I don't know if they've ever had an undefeated regular season, which is phenomenal. And second, from what I understand, I was actually around a little bit. The Maskers sale of their costumes went quite well. They raised a significant amount of money at that sale. So thanks, John. Nick, congratulations on your representation of Tim Cahill. And Kristen, we'll see you at a future meeting. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to shift the agenda around a little bit because we have a bunch of things tonight. We have a bunch of people here. So first, I want to have John Fauché. Sorry, John Bernard. Look at John. He's like, Mel, not again. John Fauché present two, or at least one club and the Washington, D.C. trip, which he's presented most of it. And then we'll get John Bernard in, and then we'll proceed to the Northeast Folk candidates. Correct? Okay. Mr.
Very
Fauché.
good. Thank you very much. I appreciate the top billing. Doesn't go unnoticed. First of all, just to kind of tie up the Washington, D.C. trip, again, I apologize for the glitch in our itinerary at our last school committee meeting. I don't mean to use up all your time, but I did present a revised itinerary which moves the trip back to the week of June 13th, which we believe will fit the current school schedule quite nicely. The last day of school is that Thursday, the 23rd. If there are no snow days, we do have another alternative plan if we have to move it again. But I think we are good to go. Nothing about the trip changed just by moving it back 1 week. So I'm hoping that we can maybe take a vote and approve it, or if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, first, I'd like to ask for questions, and then I'd like to, Mr. Venezia should be here shortly. I'd like to have the whole committee here to take the vote, but if not,
Okay,
we'll
sure.
take it with four of us.
Yep.
Any questions for Mr. Fauché? It's the same,
Nope.
basically the same trip as every year, correct?
Again, we changed the itinerary a little bit from last year's trip. We moved the hotel to a closer location to the city, which we hope will not only cut down our commute time, but this hotel will allow us to have breakfast on site at the hotel as opposed to going off to a restaurant. So the net yield there is, I bet the students will get an extra 30 minutes of sleep each morning, which I think will be most welcome, particularly towards the end of the week. The other thing is that we're doing is we are going to visit the main exhibit at the Holocaust Museum. Generally, we've been doing Daniel's story, but this year we were able to secure enough tickets for the class to get into the main exhibit at the Holocaust Museum. And so those are really the major changes.
Any questions? I think,
I'll wait for the vote.
yeah, I'm gonna wait for the vote. So
Sure.
why don't you move on to your next item? If
Yep.
Mr. Venezia gets here after that, we'll vote on
Okay, that's fine. I can
both,
wait.
and
Yeah.
if not,
Okay. We are proposing a new program for our school, and we're going to title this program the Best Buddies Mentor Program, and it is really designed to, once again, get more students involved in their community. And right now, our target audience for the mentoring will be our substantially separate program, students with significant disabilities, formerly known as the SEAM Collaborative. That program is run by Mrs. Judy Carter, and the mentoring idea was brought to my attention by Kelly Mixis, who was one of our special education teachers. So Mrs. Carter and Mrs. Mixis will work together to establish a Best Buddies mentoring program outreach towards, at this time, first year out of the box, towards the students who are in the substantially separate program. The mentoring program will meet twice monthly on Mondays, and the 8-10 students who will be selected for this program will help to design special activities for the kids in our substantially separate program. And I think it's a tremendous idea, and I would strongly advocate for its approval.
I think this is a great idea, and I think we've had some discussion on this, and Mr. Bernard can actually maybe chime in here too, but I think this is similar to some of the peer mentoring programs we have at the middle school and at the high school, where it's kind of kids working with kids to help
Yeah.
them through things, enjoy different kinds of activities in the town that maybe kids wouldn't get to enjoy, and all kind of working together. And I think it's a great idea. So
I think we've filled out our ranks, if you will, with student council as well as our peer leaders, and we do believe there's quite a few other students who still want to get actively involved in our school. So we kind of held off until those other two clubs were filled, and now we're able to announce this program that will really be dedicated towards a significant, a special population in our school, and we'll be able to get other kids involved.
And do you already have students expressing interest in?
Yeah, we've begun to put out the feelers. Any students who are interested there was an informational meeting this afternoon just to kind of get a sense of how many students would be interested in becoming part of this program once it was approved.
Okay. Any questions?
I just have one. Is there any limitations to the number of students that can be chosen for this program?
Well, again, talking to the two advisors, they're looking for like 8 to 10 students to begin with. Again, the kids who are involved in this this special education program only number 4 at this point. So, again, don't want to really outnumber them, but again, we're kind of thinking 2 to 1, that type of thing, as we get into some of the activities. But first year out of the box, this is one area that we can certainly provide mentors. There are a few other areas in our school that we could probably do the same thing, later on down the road.
Great.
I think it's a great idea. I guess the one question I have for Kathy is, since it's not a club, but we still have the stipends, how do we, I'm trying to remember how we approve the different peer or mentoring programs that we have. Mr. Bernard, at the high school, those peer programs, we have we have teachers run those programs. Is that correct?
We do.
And do they get the same stipend as the club stipends, or how does that work?
They do.
Okay.
Like the Peer Assistance Leadership Program, SLAM, Interact, they're all stipends for all those faculty advisors.
Okay. So then I guess we would do the same thing and approve this for a 2-year trial period.
Right.
And then, after that, if it's successful and we want to continue it, we continue it at that time.
Right.
So at this point, I'll look for a motion to approve the Best Buddies Mentor Program at the middle school.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Venezia is not here. Should we take a vote on the Washington trip? I just,
I don't mind waiting a few more minutes. I was going to watch Mr. Bernard's presentation anyway. So.
all right, why don't you, I'm sure, Mr. Bernard? And if Jerry doesn't come by then, we'll take a vote.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just, if I could, take a moment just to set up the projector for the PowerPoint. We have 2 PowerPoint presentations for you.
Okay. Well, at least we have the presentations. Packet, so we can see. Yeah.
Why don't you guys come up here, okay? Okay. Thank you all. We have, from the high school, 2 presentations tonight for extracurricular activities, and I brought student representatives for each club to present to you their proposals. And from the past, I think you know that the students put an awful lot of work into preparing their presentations for all of you and for the superintendent, and that certainly is the case again tonight. The first presentation is for a SAD chapter at the middle school that would be facilitated by the high school SAD chapter. SAD, again, just to remind all of you and maybe for the public, is Students Against Destructive Decisions. And our club at the high school has been in existence for 5 years, and it has been hugely successful. Very, very large number of students involved. And over the summer, the 2 students that are here today to present to you, Nick Andrea and Laura Penny, came to me over the summer and started to meet with me about their idea of bringing a SAD chapter to the middle school that they would facilitate as high school students. And from that, the idea was interesting. I contacted Mr. Fauché, as is always the case with Mr. Fauché. He was very receptive to the idea, and he arranged for some meetings with the high school staff, high school students, and some of his staff, Mrs. Carmody and Mrs. Weiss, as well as himself. And we met for a few times over the summer and into the fall. And what we have for you tonight, and I'm going to let Laura and Nick present to you, is their idea for a SAD chapter to begin at the middle school. So again, it's Nick Andre and Laura Penny, 2 senior students, and I'm going to turn it over to them and help them through the PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Nick Andrea, and I'm the president of the high school SAD chapter.
And I'm Laura Penny, and I'm the secretary.
And we made a PowerPoint for our proposal to the middle school.